sorry about that. I have to lean forward to press the recording button and then go backwards. Hi, so I've enjoyed filming videos my whole life. Being a YouTuber has been my dream job since I was, born. I was born in 2005 on September 15th, so that's actually the exact date that Shark Boy and Lava Girl hit theaters for the first time. But, YouTube was founded around 2005, so I sort of grew up alongside it. I desperately wanted a YouTube account. At the age of 5, I was begging my mom for a YouTube account. I did eventually get one. I called it Carissa Scratch Girl, and I made the mistake of giving all of my friends the password so that we could share it and upload videos together. That didn't work out. All it did was completely mess up all of my subscription feed, all my recommended videos. I was subscribed to so many channels that I had never heard of before, and it's just pages and pages of channels, and YouTube doesn't let you unsubscribe in bulk, so you have to unsubscribe manually, and I got really frustrated with it. So I made a separate account to watch videos, but for a while, I was still uploading videos on there. I did that basically every day up until around the 8th grade. That was a really rough year for me mentally. I wasn't having a good time, and I stopped uploading as frequently. In high school, I looked back on a lot of the earlier videos I made when I was an extremely young child and cringed horrifically and decided that I did not want that following me on the internet. There's actually a video that is still out there somewhere in the world that someone made making fun of my channel because they were trying to be like the Leafy equivalent. And then when I left a comment and I was like, this is really mean, they were like, no, I don't want to offend anybody. And at the time, I just accepted that. And it's like, girl, the whole video is making fun of you. But it's so bad. So some of the cringe, including an out of context clip from a series where I would do whatever my subscribers told me to do because I was young and stupid, is on there. Unfortunately. It is immortalized because the guy quit his channel, and there's no way to contact him. But, I unlisted absolutely everything. I kept them unlisted and privated so that I could go back and, for my own nostalgia, maybe sometime in the future, go back, revisit them, maybe even do a series going over those old videos. But I didn't want them to just all be available. I have no idea what's in them. I also had a really bad habit of repeating things that I heard other people say at school or online without checking what they were, which is not good. If you want to generally have a channel that is a safe environment for people and also not spread misinformation, then you want to know what the words you're saying mean so that you aren't accidentally saying slurs or whatever. Jenny Nicholson, I love her videos. She did Friendship is Witchcraft, and they used the G slur a lot because it was used in Hunchback of Notre Dame, and she had no idea it was a slur. So, that just goes to show you need to Google things. Yikes. So I was just like, no, I'm enlisting all of it. It's too embarrassing. I have no idea what's in there. I have thousands of videos uploaded and I can't sit down and watch them all. So I enlisted everything. And I also couldn't watch any videos on that channel. And I had 200 subscribers, but none of them had interacted with my content recently. And after a few times of trying to rebrand the mainline channel, I realized I just didn't want to use it. So I abandoned it. And now I have my channel that you're on now, and this is the one I use to actually watch videos. But I haven't uploaded anything because after I got into the habit of daily uploads, uploading to YouTube started to feel really scary. When I was a kid, YouTube videos were very low budget. Someone would just sit down, set up their camera, and just start yapping. But nowadays, a lot of YouTube is very high production budget. It's kind of expected to be held to around the same caliber. See my backpack. It's expected to be held to around the same caliber as like a Netflix series or something like that. And I don't really like that. I don't like that. I think it takes away the charm of what makes YouTube as a platform unique. And a lot of the creators that I still watch either are on the lower end of that spectrum or avoid it entirely because I don't vibe with it. I'm not a fan. But I felt a lot of pressure that I had to upload things. So I have like hours and hours of footage that I have recorded over the years and never uploaded because I put pressure on myself to edit. And I have ADHD and I never edit them. And then enough time passes that suddenly the footage is a year old. And it feels really strange to edit it and release it after so much time has passed. Like, I went to Disney World and I vlogged the experience and I told myself I would edit it and post it. That footage is now 2 years old and I feel weird posting it because it's so old. And so I just got caught in this vicious cycle. I still wanted to do YouTube, but also, you know, after Google bought YouTube, things have gotten increasingly corporate, and advertising has taken over the platform more and more and more. Now when I pause a video and I'm watching YouTube on my TV, I get advertisements. And I also, now YouTubers have to give sponsorships and sell merch in order to survive. You can't just live off of a YouTuber salary anymore. YouTube, even if it's your full-time job, you have to have connections with other methods of income, or else you're just not going to be able to support yourself. Unless you had already gotten famous before that change took place, or you're someone like Mr. Beast, who was just kind of already rich, and that is kind of scary. So after a while, I thought, okay, well then maybe I'll pursue dancing and music instead, because I like those things, and I love making music, I love dancing, and I was like, I'll just pursue those things. And then maybe once I get famous, I can start a YouTube channel or something on the side to support me. Like, just kind of, like, a little bit on the side, but it's not gonna be my main way of survival, and then I'll just work minimum wage until then. I have been applying for jobs since I turned 18. I am now 20. No one has hired me. It just hasn't worked. I don't know why. No idea. But never panned out. And I was at this church I go to, Awakening Nations, and one of the pastors, Pastor Jason, he came up to me, and I had recently had a really big miracle happen in my life that I'm going to tell you guys about in a minute. And he was like, you should make a YouTube video and talk about it. And I was like, I don't know, because if I tell someone who's my friend, who I know personally about this, they know I'm not lying. But if I just tell people on the internet, they're gonna be very tempted to assume that it's scripted, because internet content can be easily scripted. They have no way of knowing if they trust me. Like, they shouldn't trust me, internet safety-wise. You know, parasocial relationships are a huge thing. And so I wouldn't blame anyone if they assumed I was pulling it out of my ass. And he was like, well, if 1,000 people see it and don't believe you, but one person does and it helps them, and I was like, oh fuck, he's right, fuck. And I was like, okay, you're probably right, I'll probably have to make something. And then later that night, I was talking to a different woman who was, well, Jason isn't a woman, but you know what I mean. I was talking to this woman, and she was not there for that conversation. And this was the same night. And she starts asking about what I'm interested in. And she said, oh, I get the vibe from you that, like, you did animation at some point. And I was like, how did you know that? Because I used to make flip-a-clip animations. That was one of the things I used to upload all the time. And I was like, and she was like, oh, well, what are you trying to do now? And I was like, well, I'm trying to go into music and dance. I'd like to do YouTube at some point, but I'm not really focused on that right now. And she was like, no, wait. I literally, as you were saying that, I'm getting like visions of you like on YouTube, of like your face on thumbnails everywhere. I think, like, I feel this really intense pulling. I think that you need to be focusing on YouTube, and you can still pursue music and dance, but you need to start making YouTube videos now. You shouldn't wait. And I was like, okay, cool, awesome. So then I went home and I was like, I guess I'm making a YouTube video, and that's what this is. So everyone say thank you, Pastor Jason. And also thank you, Awakening Nations Church in general. I can't remember her name right now. I'm still learning everyone's names. I'm so sorry if you're seeing this right now. I'm sorry. Thank you. But, yeah, that's what inspired me to make this video and talk about my life and who I am and what I like to do and all that stuff. So I mentioned earlier that like a big miracle thing happened for me, so I'm gonna talk about that, even though it's scary and nobody's gonna believe me. Well, some people might, but my mom has lipedema, which is different from lymphedema. It's kind of like after fat has been on your body for a certain amount of time, it like hardens and it gets stuck, and it can't be removed except through surgery. And for some reason, in the United States, all weight loss surgeries are considered cosmetic, so it's not covered by health insurance. This is a genetic disease, and it's passed down the maternal line. It has run in my family for a very long time, and my mom was hoping that maybe it would skip a generation and I wouldn't get it, but I did. On top of this, from a very young age, I had a lot of skin problems. For a while, my family thought it was eczema, but after we cut out gluten, the skin problems went away, and I was gluten-free for a few years, and then the next time that I ate bread, I couldn't breathe, and my skin was covered in rashes again, and everyone was like, okay, that's a problem. So, severe gluten allergies, lipedema, and then most autoimmune disorders and diseases give you averse affections to the nightshade family of plants. And that is an entire whole ass family of plants. And whenever I would eat any of them, I would get sick to varying degrees, but always have a bad time. That's potatoes, tomatoes, every single kind of pepper, yes, even bell peppers. Table pepper isn't a pepper, it's a seed, so that's fine, but like the actual peppers, no. Eggplant, paprika, basically all of the good stuff from like any sort of cuisine around the world was off limits. Like, I couldn't eat Italian food, I couldn't eat Mexican food, I couldn't go to Korean barbecue, I couldn't eat anything. Except like pho with rice noodles. And that was really hard for me. And Awakening Nations has a young adults meetup that happens on Fridays. I'm actually going to go later tonight because it's Friday when I'm filming this. It's probably going to be uploaded the same day, but you know. There's a young adults meetup, and one day I was at this meetup and one of the girls was talking about how she was healed of her allergy of bananas. And everyone at the table, they all turn and look at me. And someone asks the unspoken question out loud, and he goes, well, have you prayed for God to heal you? And I was like, well, you know, growing up, a lot of adults prayed over me to try and get rid of that stuff, but it never worked. So I figure, you know, it's probably just not in the cards for me. You know, maybe I just have thicker skin than other people, and I'm just able to deal with this, and so God doesn't feel the need to intervene. I don't know. And the guy who was sitting across from me, I'll never forget this, he literally leans over the table and he looks at me and he goes, so you're just gonna give up? And at first I was honestly offended. I was like, you telling me I didn't do enough? You telling me I didn't pray hard enough or like ask hard enough? And that I'm the problem? But then I reflected on it and I was like, no, that's not what he's saying. everyone's always talking about how God's timing is, like, mysterious and, like, things happen at his pace. And I was like, okay, well, maybe what he means is more so along the lines of, it was a no back then, that doesn't mean it's a no now, and I can always ask again. So, I went home, and I was like, hey, God, it's me, your girl. Hi. I would like to be healed of literally all my allergies. I figured since I was gonna ask big. I was like, no allergies. Like, I already mentioned all the food stuff. I also couldn't have fake metal. I was like, no allergies. And you know what? While I'm asking for things, I don't want lipedema anymore. Just get rid of all of it. And then I decided, after I finished praying, that I felt like I needed an act of faith, to sort of, I guess, prove I was serious. TM, serious, trademark. So, my mom had recently baked a glutinous cake for herself and my dad. So, I cut a slice and I ate the entire thing in one sitting. And normally, you know, like, even if someone had eaten gluten and then they touched a counter, and then I touched that counter, I would have rashes. But hours passed, no rashes, no nothing. And I was just like, what? And I was like, oh my god, it worked. So, I talked to my mom, and I was like, okay, after the next service, I want to go out to eat and just eat a whole bunch of stuff that I normally wouldn't be able to eat. We decided to go have burgers, because that's bread, potatoes, cheese. I was lactose intolerant. You know, the mustard had paprika in it, and, like, the potatoes or the fries, like, all these different ingredients. There was ice cream that, like, I couldn't have before in one meal. So we went to Mia's table, and I had a burger with fries and ice cream, and I was completely fine. And also, like, after I had said the prayer, I felt my arms and my legs, like, physically get lighter. Like, things got loose. And I could still feel the fat on my arms, but it wasn't, like, attached anymore. And I started losing weight, like, really rapidly. I went down an entire shoe size. Right now, I am selling all of my old shoes because they don't fit anymore. And I had to buy new ones. Like, these are my new shoes. I had to buy them, basically on emergency, because I was getting blisters on the backs of my feet because my shoes were too big all of a sudden. So, you know, it's like the fat didn't disappear overnight, but it was loose. And so as I was exercising and walking and drinking water, I've been losing it, like, already. Like, it hasn't even been that much time, and I've already lost so much weight, so I can only imagine, like, in a year how different I'll look and feel. But I've been losing it. It's been going away. And that is something that is really incredible. So, yeah, that happened, and it was really cool. I actually, I told my Jewish friend about it, and, he said something in Hebrew. I don't know exactly what it was, but from context, I assume it was some, like, praise God equivalent, and he was like, but also, what the fuck? And I was like, yeah, exactly. And then I was like, I wonder if this is how people felt when they saw the Red Sea get parted. And then he rightfully was like, well, in that case, they'd already seen the plague, so I think they were probably just like, well, guess we're doing this shit now. And I was like, okay, you're probably right. But it was really cool. And really awesome. And it was really great. And I'm still feeling great. I now get to eat the food at the meetups as well. I don't have to bring my own food. I can just eat the food that they have there. Like, usually when I show up, either someone will have brought pizza, or there'll be something cooked. Different people are in charge of the meals each week, but we like to have fellowship and eat together before we do service. And like, now I can eat the same meal as everyone else. I don't have to eat before I leave or, like, pack a sandwich. I can just show up and eat whatever's there, and I don't have any problems. And there was, like, a bake sale that was done for fundraising, and I was able to buy and eat some of the food, and that's been great. So, yeah, that's very awesome. and very cool. And that's the thing I was supposed to talk about. But I can also talk about other stuff while I'm here, because I figure if I'm going to make a video, then I may as well just talk about whatever I want to talk about and make the full thing. So, I'm trying to decide if I should change the subject entirely or just talk about other church adjacent stuff so that the video has like a central topic. Okay. I guess I could just like tell you an abridged version of my life story, like other than what I just told you. So I grew up in California. I moved houses a lot because when I was a baby, my dad got into a construction accident and he couldn't work in construction anymore. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom at the time, and we had our house taken away, so we had to move in with my mom's parents, and there was a lot of moving throughout my life after that. And I went to a lot of different schools. I have autism, and when I was growing up, I couldn't recognize my mom. I would just see any white woman with the same hair color, and I would be like, yeah, that's my mom. Like, I couldn't tell. And so it took a lot of social skills training and stuff to get me help. I was thankfully diagnosed with autism young. Women are generally underdiagnosed with autism, but because my symptoms were so severe, they actually did something about it. Isn't that crazy? I also have ADHD. My mom is the only neurotypical person in my immediate family, so that's very fun for her. She genuinely doesn't have a problem with it. She loves all of us, and she never seems annoyed with any of us, which is very nice, and I appreciate it lots. I think a lot of people would be very frustrated in her position, but she loves us for who we are. But I went to a lot of different schools. Because I was bullied a lot, I couldn't hang out with other kids. I tried, but I had a really hard time making friends. So I would spend a lot of time caring for the snails, and I developed an attachment to that animal. Snails are to this day my favorite animal. But I would like feed them during recess and hang out and watch them, and like I remember when I was in kindergarten, some of the snails had babies, and I got to meet all the newborn snail babies, and they're all so tiny, and I was so excited. But yeah, that's where my love for snails started. Around 4th grade, I had my first best friend, but we were only best friends while I lived there, and after that we stopped talking. Not intentionally, that's just what happens when you're a kid and neither of you have cell phones. But it was really funny. I had met this girl and we were getting along, and I asked her if she wanted to be best friends, and she was creeped out by that because that's not normal. But I didn't know any better. I was just a silly autistic kid, and so she ran away. And then I was really sad about it, and I was sitting at recess being sad, and this girl comes up to me, and she was like, "What happened? Why are you sad?" And I told her what happened, and she was like, "That's mean. I'll be your best friend." And then she was. Like, we just hung out every day, and we were in the same class, and it was great. We had matching backpacks. They were galaxy print with, like, cats flying on food. I've actually seen pictures of that same backpack on Pinterest, and I'm like, I used to have that. But I also still like really dated 2000s and 2010 designs. I like mustache print. I love galaxy print, flower crowns, like those sequin hats that everyone would be wearing on the Disney Channel, the vests and ties for no reasons because the rest of your outfit isn't formal at all. I love that stuff. I love Converse, including the knee-high ones. I love skinny jeans. I am a skinny jeans fan until I die. Love skinny jeans. I just really like that stuff. Never grew out of it. I still have a big fondness for those things. In junior high, I was sort of adopted into a friend group that was all like alternative people and queer people. And I'm not saying that as a slur. I am gay. I am a lesbian. And it was like really cool. Having this group of people where all of us were either dressed strangely or were LGBT or neurodivergent or like a mixture of the above. And so a lot of us were bullied. And so in a way we kind of didn't have a choice but to be friends because no one else would talk to us. But we would all sit together and hang out. I really love that friend group a lot. I miss them terribly, but they all went to a different high school than I did. So I lost contact with all of them but one, and then that person we later grew apart. And so I haven't seen them. There was actually one friend who I had a crush on, and I genuinely, because I have autism, did not know that he liked me back. And on the last day of school, he came up to me and like our other friends were hyping him up, and he like dramatically told me he had a girlfriend, and I was like, okay. And everyone was like confused by my reaction, and I found out later they all thought I was leading him on. And honestly, for one hand, I am offended that like they thought that, but on the other hand, I also think that is really bad. You guys are his friends, and you genuinely thought I was leading him on purpose for 3 school years, and none of you confronted me. That's bad friendship. I'm sorry, none of y'all did anything to support this man other than at the very end hype him up when he already got a different girlfriend to tell me that as like a gotcha moment. None of you ever stepped in, and you all thought I was treating him like garbage? Guys, I thought we were better friends than that. Like, I thought we all had each other's backs, you know? Like, I know personally, I never let my phone on Do Not Disturb back in the day because I took on way too much responsibility. Don't do this. But when I was in middle school, I basically was the friend group therapist, and I ran, like, a underground suicide hotline. Too much responsibility for a child, but it was something that I did. It seriously damaged my mental health for years, and I've had to unpack that. So again, don't do that. I know some of you may think you can handle it. You can't. It is not healthy for you to be the therapist and life coach and survival hotline for a whole group of people. Like, it's not healthy. It's generally not healthy for you to be that for one person, like, unless you've gotten professional training, let alone an entire two lunch tables stacked next to each other. That's not okay. But I thought it was. And so I had like plans for what to do if any of my friends ever had to run away from home. I had like backpacks sitting in my closet, extra backpacks that were pre-packed with stuff in case there was an emergency. Like, I was just like, oh yeah, if any of my friends ever need to flee their abusive home situation, I got their back. And then I found out later, like, about the whole, like, conspiracy where people thought that I was doing that. And I was like, what? And that's not to say they were bad friends in other respects. I think generally it was a very supportive friend group. And we did have a lot of fun, and a lot of them helped me through some of my worst moments, and they were there for me a lot. So I do think they were generally, like, overall, extremely good friends. I just think that was one thing that, like, with adult recognition, all of us can probably look back on and go, hey, that wasn't handled very well. Like, I'm sure all the other people in the friend group look back on that and cringe, and they're like, oh, why did I handle it that way? But, you know, that's what happens when you're in middle school. You don't have a lot of stuff going on. In 8th grade, something really tragic happened to me. I'm not going to get into it, but I had really bad survivor's guilt. I did not want to die, but I felt like I had to or deserved to, so I was very suicidal for a long time. I saw the movie A Silent Voice in theaters, and it is that is the moment that I decided not to kill myself. So that movie is always going to be my favorite movie of all time. It means a lot to me. It's very special to me. In high school, I honestly, it's kind of a blur. I think I went to a different high school every year, or at least the last 2 years. After, like, it might have been 3 high schools, but it might have been 4. I just knew I moved high schools a lot. I also have had dissociative disorder symptoms since I was, like, basically, very little. This is something that my family members will be like, oh yeah, I remember, like, when you were very young, like, you talking about memory gaps or about feeling like a different person or whatever. But after what happened to me in 8th grade, it got a lot worse. I have alters, but I was undiagnosed and I did not know it. And after what happened in 8th grade, it got to the point where a different person was fronting every day. So there was a lot of problems during high school with things like important objects getting sold, and then why did I do that? Impulsive wardrobe changes where, like, we would throw everything out and sell it and then buy a bunch of new things. And, like, sometimes, you know, like, oh, I just woke up today and my hair was chopped shorter and everyone was calling me by a different name and I just gotta live with it. One of my alters in particular, when I started attending the village school, completely, like, publicly tried to transition. And he didn't know any better because he didn't know we were a system. And so he didn't ask permission. But for everyone else, it was very stressful for this identity that none of us identified with, this name that didn't belong to any of us, and this haircut that we didn't want just happening. And there were a few times where we tried to, like, publicly change our identity in a different direction, but that just created the perception among my peers that I was making it up for attention and just changing my name and sexuality and whatever all the time just to get people to pay attention to me. And it's like, no, that's not what was happening. I was just having a really, really hard time. And my counselor knew about all of this, but dissociative disorders are underdiagnosed. And even then, people think that DID specifically, not even OSDD or, like, UDD or other dissociative disorders that can have alters, DID specifically could be like 1% of the population. And it's underdiagnosed. But there's definitely this perception that it's very rare, and there's some uninformed people who will straight out tell you they don't think it's real, probably because their only exposure to it is horror movies. We really need better representation in media. But we haven't gotten that yet, so. But she knew about the memory walls and about not remembering things and all the confusion, and she didn't tell my parents for reasons I cannot fathom. And it wasn't until my last year of high school that things finally clicked, and it was like, oh, that's what's happening. And then from then on, things have actually been pretty good. We've learned to control our switches for the most part. Sometimes we still have uncontrollable ones. But we've learned to control them for the most part. My mom, out of the most frequent fronters, there's me and then 2 others who show up a lot, and then everyone else is very rare. Out of all of us, my mom can tell who's fronting at any given time. My phone actually comes with a feature for if people share the phones, you can have different profiles. So we have different profiles on the phone, different Tumblr accounts, and the other 2 share a Discord account. Technically, the whole rest of the system shares it, but, you know, they usually use it. And then I have mine. They also have their own YouTube channel, not to upload anything, just so that their algorithm doesn't fuck up mine. But we have really good alter communication, and things are actually very chill. I know some people don't get along well with their alters. I love mine. They feel like my family, just as much as my mom or my dad. And I really care about them, and I always want the best for them, and I really appreciate them, and we get along well, and I lucked out on that one. So we're doing great now that we know what's happening in the world, but it did take a while to figure out. But that was a thing that happened. And now things have been much easier because we know what's going on. After I graduated high school, actually first, the village school kicked me out. Not because I did anything wrong, but because they were bought out by a new company, and they decided to kick out every special ed student. From kindergarten, like, all the way to the highest grade. They kicked out all the special ed students. And a lot of teachers left because that's ethically awful. And they did this so late into the year that I couldn't find a new school to go to except for an online school, so I went to Liberty online because they have a high school. They have a high school track. It's not just a university, they have a high school, so that's where I went. And then after I graduated, started putting in job applications, but no one would take me. So I still live with my parents. I have my room. There's some decorations that I've had since I was a kid, some that are more recent. Because I have altars, it's very eclectic, because everyone has different tastes. But it is very cozy. It feels like home. I have some Miku plushes over here. Everyone loves Hatsune Miku. That's one thing that is constant across everybody. So far, none of my altars have ever shown anything but intense love and admiration for Hatsune Miku. So, that's great for her. We disagree on everything, like, well, not everything, but on a lot of things. Like, we have political discrepancies, even religious ones, but for some reason everyone's on board with Hatsune Miku. She universally unites us all. Which is an incredible feat for a virtual pop star, so impressive. But I do chores around the house in order to earn my rent, and then grocery money, and then I buy groceries, and then bring them back here. I only started attending Awakening Nations recently. Before, when I was in church, I was bullied a lot, and that combined with being gay, and also with some people seeing my neurodivergency as demonic, even though this is how God made me, and it's like literally having altars saved my life, because a lot of the time during my suicide attempts I would switch out and then stop what I was doing and call for help. So literally saved my life. But it was a very rough experience growing up believing in God and reading the Bible and loving God and praying ever since I was little, and then having the church reject me. It just kind of felt like the only safe place to communicate with God was in my own home. So I would still pray, but I just stopped attending normal church services, because after years and years of being mistreated, I just sort of felt like I couldn't go to a communal church space. But my parents found Awakening Nations and they really liked it, and so they recommended it to me. And around Thanksgiving, I went for the first time, and then I started going consistently. I love it. It is non-denominational, so not everyone has the same interpretation of the Bible as everyone else. So, for example, the idea of universal salvation is the idea that because Jesus died on the cross, all of us are forgiven, and, like, no one's gonna go to hell anymore. Like, we're good. And I believe in this. There are multiple verses that support this. And it is, in my opinion, the only interpretation that makes even a lick of sense. But in America, specifically, which is where I live, the most common interpretation is that is special salvation. So only believers are actually forgiven. For everyone else, that's sort of locked off until they convert. And other people can still go to hell. I don't think this makes sense. And the one verse supporting it is kind of flimsy when you think about it, because it says, for all who believe in him. But it's like, that doesn't mean that people who don't get it. Like I can say, like, I am holding a duck, But if I'm also holding something else, and I tell you I'm holding a duck, that doesn't mean that I'm not also holding my Sakura Miku plush. It just means that one of the things I'm holding is a duck. And then, of course, there's the famous, I talked about being a lesbian. Me specifically, my alters all have different stuff going on. But there's the famous debate over the mistranslation of select verses and also the interpretation. So, with regard to homosexuality, a lot of people believe that it doesn't even matter if it's a mistranslation, because they believe that since God was guiding the process, human error just isn't possible, and that he must have agreed with it or else he wouldn't have allowed it to happen. I disagree with this because for a very long time, Christians were using the Bible to justify slavery, and saying that, like, different... So, for example, like, when Cain killed Abel, he was, like, cursed, and some people say that he was the first black person. Or that the guy who walked in on his father naked and the father cursed him and said he would be a slave to his brothers, that guy was the first black guy. And people would say, like, that these marks and identifiers that were given to them to show them as slaves, the idea that people were perpetuating is that mark was black skin. And they would use this to say that, and that combined with some of the verses about how if you are enslaved, because that, like, you're supposed to try to take it in stride, they would just be like, so slavery is actually God ordained, and I don't think that's true. I think most people nowadays would say that that's absolutely awful and heinous, but back in the day, that was the dominant interpretation. And I believe that as time goes on, the same thing will happen with homosexuality, where future generations will be aghast and horrified that any of these verses were ever used to justify homophobia, and they will be like, how could people believe that that's what they were talking about? But in the current day, that's just the dominant thing. My mom was telling me that there's a part in the Bible where people will sometimes quote the part where someone spilled his seed on the ground and it was a sin, but they don't consider the context of, oh, well, the reason it was a sin is because he was doing that so that he wouldn't get the girl he was sleeping with pregnant, because he wanted to basically, if she got pregnant, the baby would get the inheritance. And he wanted to keep the inheritance and also keep sleeping with her, so he was doing it on purpose. And my mom was like, that's the part that's the sin. But again, that's interpretation, and that's something that people disagree on. So, since it's non-denominational, not Awakening Nations is non-denominational, not everyone is on the same page as me. But it also means that there's variety, there's discussion, and it also means that people are a lot less hostile to interpretations of the Bible that they don't agree with. People come from all denominations to this church, and so I have never received any aggression or hate or anything for reading the Bible and understanding it differently than someone else who's reading the same thing. I have never encountered that. We even have different pastors, and the pastors have different opinions. And depending on who's speaking on a sermon, they'll have different opinions on things. And that's reflected. But I honestly like that variety. I think it leads to, like, encountering a lot of different perspectives. And I think when you're trying to have, like, a deep relationship with God and you're trying to build your understanding, encountering a lot of different types of people and a lot of different perspectives and ideas is really important. I think that is very healthy. I also, again, like, I love the variety, because I feel like a lot of churches, at least the ones where I was getting bullied at, a lot of the ones I've encountered, everyone dresses the same. They're usually all the same ethnicity. It's almost cult-like. And it's not like they kick people out who don't fit that description, but there's sort of like a clique mentality, and people who don't fit in often get shunned. And so this results in like a very intense hostility towards outsiders. And Awakening Nations doesn't have that, because there's so many different people from all these different countries all around the world, and all these different branches of Christianity who are all coming together. And because of that, there's a lot of kindness and open-mindedness and just love. And I feel like that can be very hard to get in other churches, so I appreciate that a lot. And I know that I'm not alone in that. Once a girl who was dressed in Decorah saw me, and she saw my makeup, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, are you a Gyaru?" And she was so excited. And later her mom told me that they were looking around and church shopping for the same reason that, my family had told me about this church, where her daughter was getting bullied for the way she dressed, for the fact that she listened to Vocaloid, for the fact that she, enjoyed YouTube and cartoons and watched The Amazing Digital Circus. And people would, make fun of her, and she was having trouble fitting in, and I was very happy to tell them, well, you'll do great here, you will, some people may not have the same interests as you, but you'll meet lots of people who do, and you'll be able to make friends. One time at YA, we spent the entire fellowship portion, everybody talking about anime, because the people had showed up that day, most of us watched anime, and so we had a very long discussion on anime. One girl even said that one of her favorite anime was Yuri on Ice, and I was like, yo! So that was really cool. And so it's and there are some people who don't watch anime. There's some people who won't even watch Disney movies, because for them, they feel like that's uncomfortable. They only want to watch Christian media. But there's lots of people who do watch anime and YouTube and, dress differently. And I feel like it's really nice, because it's no matter where you fall, you will find community, and I think that's really important. Because everyone deserves a place where they can come and worship God, where they can praise God and talk to Him and try to learn and grow, and Awakening Nations has offered that for me, so I'm very thankful for that, because it was very hard to get for a very long time. As I mentioned, I like Gyaru. I do my makeup Gyaru style every day that I do makeup. I don't always do makeup, but every time I do makeup, I do Gyaru makeup. I know there's different fashion substyles of Gyaru, and I do like a lot of them, but I tend to just dress however I want any given day, and then just do Gyaru makeup. I have naturally curly hair, but for a long time it looked straight because I wasn't taking care of it properly. My dad has short hair, and my mom has straight hair, so no one ever taught me how to take care of it. And one day I was at school, and I was talking to this girl, and I was like, yeah, I have curly hair, and she was like, no, you don't. And then I, told her, I was like, yes, I do, and I, showed her childhood photos, and she was like, your hair is damaged, and she gave me a whole bunch of advice. I've been sleeping with a bonnet now. I've been using curly shampoo and conditioner. I don't dry brush it anymore. That was the big one. She was like, why do you dry brush your hair? You dry brush your hair every day? No wonder you're complaining about it falling out all the time and getting damaged. No, you brush it while it's wet. You don't dry brush curly hair. So I don't do that anymore. Now my hair is much happier, much healthier. Some days it's more curly than others, but overall it is happy, and that's very nice. I plan on dyeing my hair blue, but I have to bleach it very light first, because the shade of blue I want is very, let me see if I have, actually, Snow Miku is a great example. You see this color? I want this color, and because that's such a light shade of blue, I have to get my hair almost white first, or else it's not gonna take. So I plan on bleaching my hair and then dyeing it. I love K-pop. That's actually part of how I was planning on trying to get into the music industry, is that foreign idols have become more accepted nowadays, and I love K-pop, and Girls' Generation is my favorite group, and I also would love to work on a team and have a bunch of girls that I live with and we all work together. So being in a girl group sounded very appealing to me, and that is sort of what I've been working towards, other than YouTube. I have some Red Velvet and Twice albums that are physical, and those are behind the camera right now. But other than that, most of my music is digital because physical music costs money, and I haven't been able to buy anything yet. But I would love to buy some Girls' Generation music and merchandise. But unfortunately, that's very hard to find, and you do kind of have to order it from overseas. And I haven't gotten around to it yet, but one day I plan to do that. I'm part of a Lolita fashion collective that is in the town that I live in. People who live here will be able to tell that it's here. I've given enough information for that, but I don't want to just straight up say the city I live in, because it's a big city, but I'm not comfortable just saying it to strangers. But, it's very nice. Everyone has been super sweet, and it's been great so far. I'm still very new, still getting to know everybody, but so far I've been having a really great time. The next meetup I'm gonna try and head over to a tea party that's happening after church, which does mean I am going to be wearing my Lolita cord to church, because yes, I do dress like this going to church and school and like the grocery store. I just dress however I want. I don't really censor myself for other people. Oh, I have a tub of fidget toys. Right here. Squishy carrot. This is technically a dog toy. Lots of good stuff. A ball. Tangle. Ooh. Very fun. I do have a proper camera, but it doesn't have a microphone, so until I buy a microphone, I have to borrow my mom's phone in order to film any YouTube video ever. Isn't that so fun? But one day I will have a microphone. I have a guitar, but all my attempts to learn how to play guitar have been thwarted. I did know how to play ukulele for a long time, and then I had given my ukulele away, but I recently got it back, so I'm trying to get back in the habit of playing ukulele. Obviously, the muscle memory isn't all there because the last time I played my ukulele was in middle school, but I'm getting back into the habit. So that's very fun. Most of the music I make, I use like synths and MIDI. I use Soundtrap a lot, or like I've used GarageBand before, but I find it a little difficult. But I make a lot of music electronically. Like I'll pull out my keyboard and plug in my headphones and make music. Sometimes I take samples from my real instruments. Other times I just use the computer. And I have a really fun time making music. I actually have a lot that I've already put out on the internet before that is out there in the wild, in the ether. I have an abandoned SoundCloud account. I have two actually, or three. One of them was a band that I had with my friends that no one else ever posted to. And that's the one that has my music. The other ones had like a failed podcast I tried to do under one of my old usernames. But I have some of my music on there. And then I had one song I posted to Tumblr, a bunch of songs that were on my computer that haven't been posted, and then also one of the songs that is on the band SoundCloud also has a music video that was entirely made in iMovie. And I tried, and all the comments are saying that it makes them feel like they're on a drug trip. So, you know what, that's pretty glowing reviews for a music video. I feel like that's what a lot of music videos are going for. So, you know, I did in a way meet the goal. I completed the assignment. I did it on a budget, but it was done. I accomplished what I came here to do. Can I do a room tour, or is my room too messy? My room is too messy for a room tour. I guess I could do... No. Damn. One day, I have a Google Doc full of pages and pages of bullet point list video ideas. So, I will be uploading more. I've decided, since I got a very obvious push to start making YouTube videos again, that what I'm going to do is go back to what worked for me back in the days when I was uploading YouTube videos every day. I'm not saying I'm going to upload them every day, but I am saying clearly I used to be able to do it. And what helped me film videos and what led to me actually releasing content is not editing them. So until I'm making enough money to pay someone else to edit my videos, I'm not going to edit them, because I realized that is the only way they're getting out into the internet is if I don't edit them. So yeah, stay tuned, subscribe if you want to. I hope this video was interesting, and I hope that the testimony I shared also helped you, because, you know, ideally it'll help at least one person. And also I hope you like my hashtag crib, because I recently reorganized my room and I've been cleaning it, which is part of why it's still a little messy, is because I have been going through everything and cleaning things and putting things in the washer and dryer and reorganizing and dusting and doing all this stuff, but it's a multi-day process. So, thank you for watching. Bye!